And yes, we are breaking the silence. And welcome to Breaking the Silence live chat with yours truly, Steve Neill. We do this every Thursday. We give you guys a chance to chat in the chat section. And I get to get things off my chest and tell you what's going on in the world of breaking the silence. And I'm going to start off by talking about a TV show I love very much and still do. And I still think, out of everything that's ever been done, that it is by far the best television program made ever, not just sci-fi, but in general, because of the stories and the messages that pertain so much to our condition today still, because we were fighting the same bad stuff back in the 60s, and boy was I. It was just a terrible time with Vietnam and all that. So, not to mention other issues too, like civil rights. But there was The Outer Limits. Like Rod Serling and The Twilight Zone, it was doing its very best to communicate with the public, to remind them that there are people who very much understand the terrible wrong things that the people in power are doing. So recently, I got a commission to do something from my favorite episode. Uh, but I have many favorites, but The Six Finger with Dave McKellen, which is the story where a small uh, coal mine town in the UK, uh, David McKellen wants to get out of the mines. He wants to do something different with his life, and he meets this doctor, a scientist in town, who's doing experiments with advancing genetic evolution. Literally, he's built a time machine where he can put uh, an animal or a human being in there and advance their genetic code to represent the way that species of animal or human would look in the future. And he advances Dave McKellen into a man thousands of years from now. You may not remember it. You may not even have seen The Outer Limits, but that was the final stage of the makeup. And I have been sculpting that very same thing. And this is all done by hand in the computer. In other words, with the mouse. Um, can you see it? No. This, I sculpt with this because some of you have asked, what pad do you use? What this, what that, what AI? No, I don't use AI. This is all sculpted in a 3D program called Blender. So, and it's a three-dimensional object. And so eventually that gets turned into what we call an STL file, and that goes to these printers here. And then it goes from there to, where's the picture? To this. This is a small one I printed out to fit the commission that I'm doing, which fits inside of a shadow box. And what I'm going for with the shadow box is to um, be able to have this scene happening where you see this window and you see him behind it, and the beginnings of it are happening here. I still have to finish the door and put the ridges on it and paint him and everything else. There's going to be lights flickering inside, and that's going to be the shadow box when it's done. So in using, there's the machine. So in using YouTube to look back at the episode, um, something came up and that I thought was very significant, and it just really literally brought tears to my eyes. Every Outer Limits show ended with a narrative, with a commentary by that wonderful voice. And on this particular show, and I wrote it down, this is what was said. And I didn't quite remember it the way it was said. And it relates so much to the visitor message and what's going on today. I'm just going to read it to you. An experiment too soon, too swift, and yet may we not still hope to discover a method by which within one generation the whole human race could be rendered intelligent, beyond hatred or revenge or desire for power. Is this not, after all, the ultimate goal of evolution? Well, that did it for me. Uh, no truer words were ever spoken. And clearly, if we don't get our stuff together, we are rated G, and do it damn soon. We're not going to be on this planet anymore. The planet will still be here. The planet will be fine. All the animal life and everything here will be fine. It'll completely recover from us. But we have a choice. We always have a choice. And we need to make that choice and not think that someone else is going to take care of it uh, or do it for you. You're too busy. You don't know what to do. Well, Mary and I knew what to do because we started, but something is there. And for me and for Mary personally, um, we feel that this entire event that's happening between human beings and non-human intelligence is an event sociologic. Literally, this is about us. This is about this very thing we're talking about. Um, they are not what your government, our government, or whatever government you have, because I think they're all a bunch of BS, is trying to tell you about the visitors. And there are plenty of people trying to tell you that the visitors are here not just to help us, but to help us help ourselves. So now that I got that off my chest and moving on, I mean, that really grabbed me when I was watching the end of that episode. And I put it up on in the community section of this channel, and you can go there and watch it. It's just the very end after um, the girl, his girlfriend, brings him back from being this advanced being. He wanted to go on. He wanted to become uh, all mind and no matter, but she brought him back. Um, yeah, he reached a point where his hatred for the world and the town that he worked for, he wanted to use his powers that he had as a result of being an advanced human from thousands of years in the future, to go in town and destroy it. But then something happened to him. He reached a point in his intelligence where it no longer mattered to him anymore. He just wanted to keep going and become pure consciousness, which ironically, we all are. We're all pure consciousness. Just a lot of us don't realize that. So that was really something. And I think I've talked enough about it. So that was that. I just love. I there's a guy I watch uh, that does this, and it just always makes me laugh. So I have these cards. This Friday, you are not going to want to miss. And I sound like I'm really pushing our show, and I am really pushing our show because I happen to think that our show is really quite good. I think we do things very well, and having Barbara Lamb on is amazing. Um, what's really interesting about Barbara is we knew each other back in the 90s. And back then, I was a bit more nuts and bolts than I am today, which is almost no nuts and no bolts. Well, the nuts, I don't know, but the bolts, no. So, um, and I was more cautious about my experience and cautious about what the visitors were all about. Yeah, I knew they were in my life. I knew the stuff was going on, but Barbara already had it all figured out back then, pretty much. She knew what I know now and what I've been trying to tell you all along. Not just me, but so many people that have come in front of our camera, including Earl Grey Anderson. That's right, Earl. Um, that this is a positive thing, regardless of what you think. You're entitled, but in my opinion, regardless what you think. This is a good thing. And she's got it all figured out pretty much. And so you're going to hear all that Friday. Um, she knows about 3 different types of hybrids, where they are, where they exist, what their purpose is. She talks about 3 different types of experiencers, walk-ins, star seeds, and I forget the other one, but uh, she's worked with this subject and with clients who have these experiences, putting them into regressive therapy under hypnosis, and for 40 years or more been accumulating a vast data bank of knowledge about this subject. And she's very qualified, I think, to comment on this subject and what some people, especially the nuts and bolts people, will say when they hear her speak, as they've heard Dr. Gale speak, as they've heard me speak, as they've heard Whitley speak. I could go on and on here. You guys are nuts. This is going too far. But it's not. It isn't at all. These people are telling you what you want to know. Why is this happening? Why are they here? Why me? So Barbara goes into this in a lot of detail. Uh, I'm not going to tell you much more than that because I want you to watch the show. I mean, there's some really amazing and shocking stuff that I didn't really think about that much until she brought it up. So she's incredible. The show's a little over an hour. She does mostly all the talking. I promise I hardly interrupt her. So that's really great. I'm really looking forward to that. Um, we're also, I just finished a script called On the Beach. It's not the same movie. If you're familiar with the movie, it was done years ago. I think it was a book too, On the Beach. This is a different On the Beach, but this has a lot to do with what I was just talking about. And this is a live action film, a short film uh, that's going to be entered in film festivals by Dr. Chris Landon, who's got our back on this. We call him our executive producer. He's actually a very creative human being. He's a doctor, a medical doctor, but he's also an incredible artist, painter, thinker. Um, and I'm helping him with some of his film projects. And so this film, I think you'll really enjoy. It's still a part of the But Something Is There series. You saw the original film, But Something Is There. If you haven't seen it, you ought to. I think I have a poster for it here. Well, that's the poster, but that's also the cover of my book by the same name. And then we did another film called The Dreamtime, which was about my experience with Adolf Hitler via The Visitors. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that coming. It's there on the channel. Don't ask, where can I see these? They're on the channel. They're there. And then we did a conversation with my father, which was based on experiences I've had with experiencing the dead. But you know what? They're not really dead. I have talked to people that have passed on from this reality. It doesn't speak of the other realities that we all exist in over and over again. I think somebody used the term, we are fractured, like a hologram. If you break a hologram, you look at each individual piece, you'll see the whole inside of it. And evidently it's proposed that that's how we are. And I think as science progresses, we're starting to learn that this could be possible. So there's that one. I'm sorry. It's very juvenile, I know. So this brings us to what the main topic of tonight's show is all about. This is Mary's idea, and we're going to have experiencer art. This is art from people who have experiences. And I figured I'd started off talking to you about my art because you've seen a lot of it and you've seen it go by in the shows, but you really never heard me talk about it. And I've never really told you about, well, how I arrived at these things and what they represented and that kind of thing. So I'm going to do that. But starting next week at the same time, same station, I believe we're going to start with Benno and his artwork, and we're going to move on from there. We have people who have sent in artwork, and we're going to talk about the art. And if possible, I think we talked about this, Mary, about sending them a link so they can come on the show and talk about their art if they want to, if they can. So I'm going to start with my stuff tonight. And God, you know, I started doing this art probably in the 1970s. In fact, one of the first pieces I ever did is it in this batch of art. It's easy enough to find. Um, was kind of influenced by Travis Walton, but there we are. But I put my own spin on it because I felt that I knew what they looked like. This was before. This was before communion. Now, what's interesting is I dated this later, but the original date you can see was 5/27/70. Um, that's pretty amazing. So I'm not sure which one it was. You can see I call it Type 1. Now put some black eye covers on that, and what do you have? This is way before, if it is 1980, it's before by 7 years communion came out. Um, Travis Walton's book was out, but this looks significantly different from his, and I think I still have this drawing somewhere. And it was just a sketch I did, and that was one of the first ones on record. Um, so let's move up here. What I started doing some more of this during the 80s because I had such an intense interest in the subject matter. After all, I'd been seeing UFOs and having strange, what I thought were dreams all during this time, from the time I was a little kid. By the time Communion came out, and I read that, that's, of course, we've talked about this before. This is when I started putting the dots together and going, my God, okay, now I get it. Now I know why I'm who I am and why I've always been the way I am since I was a kid, sort of isolated from the rest of human beings around me, few friends, and kind of was a loner and stuck to myself, looked at the stars all the time to me. That's the short story. Um, but by 93-ish, I was in touch with Don Ecker and his wife Vicky, and they were the publishers and the writers for UFO magazine, which was a very good magazine. It got taken over later on. I don't think it was as good afterwards, but I was helping them, and I did covers for it, and I was making artwork, and based on people had seen what I felt I had seen, and I was making. Where is he? Where are you? I was making sculptures that I was selling in their magazine, and because there was no internet around 93, 94. Yeah, there was internet, but it was very much in its infancy, and I was still using advertising in UFO magazine, which was seen by a lot of people. It was very popular, including Chris Carter, which is how he ended up with two of these very busts right here. I found this out when I went to meet him to work on X-Files back in the day. And he pulled two of those out from behind his desk and smiled and said, "I know who you are, Steve. I know about your work." So that was kind of cool. But I was doing that. And then when I started going to see Yvonne, now I got to find out where this is so I can take it down. There it is. I started going to Yvonne, and I worked a deal with Yvonne that in exchange for her doing sessions with me, because they were costly, not that I couldn't afford it, but she wanted my art. She liked my art, and she asked me if I would do drawings for her lectures and for her books that were upcoming in the future and other functions that she did um, that were based on her clients' memories. And she used to call me her police artist. So I don't know if that's accurate or not. Mary doesn't seem to think so, but that's what she did. So yeah, I started doing that, and in fact, I think some of you may know about Jesse Long. He was one of her early cases, and Jesse and I both appeared on many television programs, and he talked about his experiences. And he's the one um, who had the crystal implant removed from his knee. Do you guys remember that? I got to go to the comments and see. Do any of you remember that? Jesse Long. Mary will let me know because I'm going back over here to my art. Um, anyway, Jesse had amazing experiences. They started when he was a kid, and I can't remember exactly, but I think he and his brother were walking home from school. There was an open field. There was a big clown tent in it, and these clowns came out and said, "You want to come inside here and see our circus?" And as it turned out, they weren't clowns, and that wasn't a tent. You get my drift? And of course, that led to a life of experiences, which he talked about on the shows. One of the things he talked about was his hybrid kids. You've heard this from so many people. Now I know it's all sounds very sinister. You know, they're taking our sperm and they're taking our eggs and they're making these babies and what are they doing? They don't have the right to do that and stuff. Well, have you looked around? Have you seen the terrible shape the world's in? Have you noticed human character lately? How it's feeding like demons on its own flesh with lust for power and greed? I think we need a refit. And that's what these kids are. Yeah. Now, again, that's strictly my opinion and only for entertainment purposes only. But yeah, this is my firm belief that this is what's going on. And guess what? It's been going on for a very long time. I'll give you an example. I wish the way they have these pictures organized, it would make more sense. But uh, I know it's here somewhere. Well, here's one. This is one I did later. You notice the monolith uh, behind the gray and the Australopithecus. But I want to find. I did this one too. This one was done during the 90s while I was working for Avon. Yes, in 2001 is probably the greatest movie ever done on this subject matter, I think. No one no one actually realized that. Okay, so that one's not here, but you've got to see it. I think I've shown it before. Shouldn't be too hard to find. Sorry for the delay. Come on, I know you're here. There it is. All right, here we go. Open Sesame. Oh, I have too many pictures. Okay, well, it we're going to get rid of this. Delete that. Delete. Put this one up again. Here we go. This time it'll let me. So the whole idea behind this piece was that this has been going on for a very long time. Now here we have something that looks close to Neanderthal or um, Homo erectus, and the gray, of course, is giving him a baby to hold, and one that's not like him, that's more like us, the beginning of Cro-Magnon man or modern man as we know it today. Um, and I have another one I did here. I found that I have this one on the wall at the studio. So this whole thing has been running around in my mind for a long time. That the visitors on Earth and our species and the development and evolution of our species has been helped all along. So, so let's move up here. This is a piece I did for Yvonne. It's a lot of you have seen this. It's been around for a long time, and it's one of my favorite pieces because it really depicts their little thin, unbelievably thin bodies with their thin, long necks supporting those huge heads very well. And again, there's the baby. And again, this is another one I did for Yvonne with the child in the tank, and you'll notice the eyes are slightly bigger, but yet it's still very human. Um, oh yeah, that's a frame grab from one of our shows. Um, and again, this was a more recent one I did for the art show, which was back in 2019. We had an art show at the studio. This is something I want to do again, and I'm hoping to have uh, James Pike plans to have his art there, and we'll see how many other people we can get to come to the studio and have an art show and art party at the studio. It was a lot of fun to do uh, back then. So going back to how this is all starting out was this is one of the pieces I did for Yvonne, and this was based on a memory I had of something looking in the crib at me. This one is done just with colored pencils. I did a lot of them with colored pencils for Yvonne. I did stuff for Whitley too. This was a this is right out of his book Breakthrough, I believe. And his friend answering the door and seeing this communion type gray with a wig on and a dress with a bag of vegetables taken from the garden outside. Uh, that's just how strange this stuff really is. Um, this is what I used to look like. Look at that. Yeah. This was at my old studio in Granada Hills. I had this wonderful studio attached to this house. And this particular studio was quite large. I did a lot of my motion picture work there. I did the aliens for NBC's Confirmation there for Whitley, and I'm working on a painting with a big gray looking over a veil, and there's a gray down there over, or I don't know where this painting is, putting a soul into this woman, the soul of a being into her child. And if you look up on the wall, you can see Richard Dreyfuss in that wonderful shot from when he looks back before he goes on the ship and leaves. Um, there's a painting there that's sort of my late wife, Jilly, with the gray, showing her the earth. There's one above it with the craft and a woman being taken to the craft. And those are all lost. The one up in the very top where you see the beam of light coming down, I still have that one. Well, I have a picture of it. And the one off to the very far right there, you can just barely see was was a painting I was working on for uh, UFO magazine at the time. I have other pictures inside the studio. This is a sort of a close up I pulled on that because that's just lost. It's a shame. I'm going to show you some more stuff inside the studio. This is when I had a exhibit table at a convention that was up in the Bay Area, and I spent 3 days up there, and Whitley and I hung out, and you can see the big bust over in the corner, which eventually ended up with Whitley. He doesn't know where it is now, but that was a full-size bust of the Communion Lady. A painting I did from the secret school, and I had prints of my art out there that people could purchase, and I sold a lot of them. It's amazing. And the very famous Communion T-shirt, I did the painting for the T-shirt and had the T-shirt silk screened, and Whitley still has some, and there's been talk about bringing them back, but They're very costly to make. There's at the very end there, next to the portrait, is the original painting that I did of the communion book cover my way that was used for the T-shirt. And of course, that painting's lost to time as well. In fact, this is the painting right here. I think there's a better one here, and that was acrylic on canvas. Um, I also did during that time, and some of you know about this because you read the comics if you were a paid subscriber on my uh, Substack account. These are available there to see. The one that's the prototype up in the corner that says Martin Powell on it, Steve Neill, Jillian Neill, my late wife. If you look up at the very top, you'll see a triangle with Dreamland Comics in it because the name of my company back in that time was Dreamland Effects, and that's where I was selling my art through. And this is how Whitley found me. I'm through my friend Martin Powell and through UFO Magazine, which is how Chris Carter discovered me, and a lot of other people. And I ended up, you see, the other two covers are done in Photoshop with my full-size busts that I made. And in fact, full-size characters. I had two small grays and I had two of the big ones too. And what I did is I took a picture against a white background and then pulled that into Photoshop back then. These were fully articulated puppets. They could move. They were full size. They were used in sightings and a lot of other TV programs. They were on stage. On the Vicki Lawrence show that I appeared on with Jacques Vallée. These guys really have a long history. They are also out there somewhere, lost to time, probably rotted away by now because they're just made out of foam rubber. But I took that into Photoshop and I turned it into this cover, the one in the middle. So I did a lot of work back then and more stuff for Yvonne. This is the device that was described, and I described it as something that collected sperm. It's kind of like one of those finger traps where you put your finger in both ends and it pulls tight. Um, I know all you males here are cringing right now. But somebody's got to do something to save the human race. No one else seems to be. Also, I'll show you this too. This is really interesting to me because I originally was supposed to do the inside of the comics for Communion Comics, and Caliber Comics, the guy there, he didn't like my style, and so I got kicked off. But I did do the covers for the comics, and this was, based on Whitley's cabin and the visitor looking through the crack in the door, his alarm up there, and I thought it was good. I liked it. What else have I got here? I got a lot of stuff. Also, I did storyboards for Yvonne. Storyboards based on my recollections, both consciously and under hypnosis, working with her. And you can see here, this is really accurate. This is my old waterbed. You can just barely see my late wife over here. She was always completely out. Those were my dresser drawers, the big picture we had over the bed. And there I am. That's how I slept, underwear and a t-shirt. Here you see them lifting me through the ceiling. You can see the legs just coming through. And then, of course, being taken up to this dark object that was semi-lit with this beam coming from it next to the big tree of our house. Yep. I think this is another one, continuation. But actually, no, this was another event. I remember waking up and looking, and there was this gray there, and it put its face right in mine and calmed me. And then they pulled the covers off. You can see that step by step them doing that and then lifting me out of bed and the arrows pointing up. There's one in the background watching. I know you can't see my mouse that I'm moving around, unfortunately. Uh, and you'll notice that there's this black box on my chest right there. I'm just now noticing that myself. And there was something about the black box. I know Seb talked about it, and but there were other uses for these boxes besides holding a soul in it. And then, of course, there's the ceiling. Um, Again, you can see how dark the object is in the sky. And these are all just colored pencil. That's our bathroom there, and the light coming through our curtains. And my looking down on our backyard and then coming into this metallic hallway scene with these little beams going over. And yes, the floor, when I wasn't being floated over it, felt very soft. Um, this is another storyboard I did for Yvonne, and where I remembered being shown what we call the gallery with all these babies in there. And again, they look like hybrids of some sort. And then there's this machine over here, and they sat me down at the machine, and it had holograms coming at me, and I had to put my hands over these lights, and I could uh, make them move and steer them, and it was really interesting because as I'm reading Susie Hansen's book this year, just only what a month or so ago, I found something very, very much the same and similar in every way to what she was describing, with the big machine sitting at it and the holograms and how they were supposed to navigate. Uh, I had to put the book down and kind of get a hold of myself there for a minute because it's quite surprising when when this stuff happens to you. So I talked about Whitley Strieber's special. It was 2 hour special. It was on prime time, 2 hours on this subject matter. And the producers and I guess it was NBC. Yes, it was NBC. Assured us that they would handle this subject with respect and told us all kinds of lies. And then, of course, did exactly what they wanted to do anyway. And it was kind of a bitter thing. Jesse Long was involved in it. They put him, they put a lie detector on him and he failed it. And he failed it because it was rigged. It got pretty ugly because I got nasty towards the lie detector guy, the guy operating it and stuff. And there was lots of accusations going on and everything. And they basically made Jesse out with their skeptics, which they said they wouldn't have come on, Michael Shermer and some others, saying how basically, we didn't know what we were talking about. And we had issues and all that kind of stuff. And when the show aired, we all watched it and we saw this happen, and it was just horrible. And I remember Jesse calling me, and he was in tears. He was angry at Whitley. I mean, he needed somebody to blame. Whitley, he had no control over what those people did. It was based on one of his books, the title and confirmation, and them turning into big special, and they fed him a bunch of BS too, and then he took advantage of us all. But one of the things I did for it after that whole long story was I made the grace for it, or his communion beings, and they were puppeted, and we only saw them from the waist up, and their hands moved. This is us on the stage, and that's me. I was pretty exhausted with my Vista Vision T-shirt on because we'd worked so hard. I have pictures of me that I really should show you of me. I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff so that I can bring in some more pictures. Of course, this is a more recent piece I just did just a few weeks ago. my praying mantis that I saw. This is acrylics on canvas. This is shot in my backyard in Granada Hills with one of those puppets for the TV show Sightings. Well, it was a great show to work on. They were nice people. And this, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in the day, they were making little bottles with grays in it. Well, I had kind of done that first, and this is quite a large piece actually. You can see it next to the fart gun from the Minions, and that's a full size gun. I did that, and but I want to show you. You know, that was I love doing this piece because it's pretty much what I remember. The helicopter, the craft. This is what I remember. I was floating under my friend that night, the Colorado, being taken up to that object. Um, what can I lose here so that I can bring in some more stuff? Let's see if I can do this. Oh, this you'll enjoy. This is a clay sculpture of the communion head, and this was uh, the mask that we sold. Whitley and I sold these. I made them up. He gave me permission to sell them, and they're out there somewhere. I know some of you still have them, and they've held up remarkably well after all these years. But that was the sculpture in clay before I made the molds on it. And I've done a lot of stuff like this. Here I am with one of the small grays, a painting I did. I don't know where that painting is. And that's something I just lost track. Um, okay, we're going to get rid of this. And I'm going to bring in something, yes, else. I have more pictures of stuff that I've been finding, and I think I got to show this. I got a whole bunch of stuff from Sightings here. Let's see if I can find this one. It's pretty cool. It's me in the backyard of my Burbank house. Um, and I don't see it. We're going to type in something here. Nothing, huh? Okay. There we go. Wow. I have pictures here from TV shows I worked on. Mac Tonight. Oh wow. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Me with Adam Nimoy. When I helped him with his show because I worked on Star Trek. But these are not them. So the pictures I was hoping for. There's a career picture there. This might be it. I think. Come on. Come on. This picture will crack you up if I can find it. I just saw it the other day. I do this to you all the time. I have to apologize, but it is a great picture. But come on, you got to be there. Damn, I can't find it. Too many pictures, too many movies I worked on, and all that stuff. Um, Forbidden World. If you've never seen Forbidden World, I don't know if you want to see it, but it's pretty amazing. Fright Night. Well, these are communion busts that I used to sell. There's several of these out there, and Whitley signed these, and so did I. But we are going to bring them back because now that I have the big resin printer, I can print these up again. And these were cast in latex, very thick latex, and mounted and painted and hand epoxied. I did a lot of stuff about this stuff. So, but I wish I could find that picture of me with all those grays in the backyard, but they're just not. Let's see, it's gonna. No, I don't know. I don't know. This is a picture of me back in the day. I did this commission art for someone's house. They wanted a big picture of a galaxy. Check out the hair. Now I have another picture of me like this, and I'm holding two gray alien masks. But this was a rather large painting I did. I'm holding it in front of my garage door. Um, and that's what I used to look like. So that painting does exist somewhere still. Not sure where, but it's out there. It's really something. Let's see. Are you getting bored yet? More of the grays. I have a picture of me actually sculpting on that as well, but I don't see it here. This is the Star Child that I made, and it's full size, and it's exactly like the one that was used in the film. That this is made in resin and fiberglass, so this will last forever. There's Moonwatcher next to him. Um, and it's interesting if you look at the Star Child, it sure looks like a hybrid to me. 1968. Okay, we're getting down here to the nitty gritty. This is I did this several times, uh, trying to get it accurate to what I remember seeing. And my grandfather and I, when I lived in Santa Venetia in Marin County with my grandmother over the summer back in the late 50s, my grandfather, the Irishman, used to take me out on walks, and there was this open field and the Milky Way, and it was a countryside. It wasn't what it is today, which is just horrible. They just paved paradise and they put up a parking lot. I went back there recently, and it was so sad. What we've done to this planet. Shame, shame, shame. Anyway, we used to walk this dirt frontage road, and at night, now some of you have seen my film, and if you watch the film, you can actually see what happened, but I know many of you haven't, and it's on the channel, but something is there. This object came flying along and slowed down and kind of hovered over us before it shot off down the road, and I'll never forget it. I saw lots of things with my grandfather. One night I was out in the same road, and I saw a ghost of a humanoid ghost shimmering. I mean, it was shimmering and white and transparent over the old well, where I later found out the farmer had fallen down and died. And my grandmother just used to make fun of us all the time. This was a piece that my late wife forbid me to ever show. Um, was done in 1994. Uh, she was very paranoid, and she was in the UK when the towers were struck. And but I had this experience where the visitors were trying to show me things to come, and they showed me that, and they showed me. You notice the water is rising up over the buildings, and so this freeway is going underneath the water, and um, this was all about climate change and all these other things, and that was back in '94. Uh, I can show it to you now, and of course, this one here. I if you look down at the bottom, you see this little DNA spiral kind of going on there. Um, I got to ask the question: is there a God? And this is what I was shown, and I was told that we are all God. We are all part of this massive energy field of consciousness that we all belong to. And this was back in '94. These kinds of things were coming out all the time in my experiences whether it was under hypnosis or not. If you look at it for a long enough time, you'll see that there's other forms in those clouds. I'd kind of like to redo this. This was a very strange experience because I was come to and I'm in a room. I was very conscious and I was in a room and I guess like I came out of whatever I was under. I think it's a form of hypnosis that the visitors use on us to keep us calm. But see, sometimes you come out of it. And I saw this thing crawling on the floor in this room. It was all metal in there. It looked metal. And it was crawling along. I could see little hands coming out from it. And it had like what looked like a turtle shell, but maybe it was more like a placenta. I don't know. But I picked it up and this little gray came in and it was so concerned. Please, please give me that. Please don't, be careful. Don't. And when I picked it up and flipped it over, that's what I saw. If this looks familiar to anyone out there, please send me an email and let me know or put it in the comments. Because I was very awake at that moment and remember it well enough that I could do this drawing. Even capture this gelatinous feeling of whatever that membrane was attached to its back, and the look on the face of that little gray, and it's very feminine looking and very soft, and that's really how the small ones really felt to me. I've talked about this before, and of course, it was the one time that I ever recall seeing what I think might have been a reptilian. Its skin sure felt like it. And then again, I came out of hypnosis and I'm sitting on a metal table and that's sitting next to me. And I started to slide off the table slowly to get away from it. And it wrapped its leg around my leg. And I can never forget the feeling of its rough skin, scaly type rough skin on my leg. And I said, "Where are you going? You're not going anywhere." And then I went out. And what I mean by that is that I know from reading other people's accounts, especially um, Susie's and the dual soul connection, is that they use a form of hypnosis to calm us, to keep us calm. And also, they use it so that the memory is not in the forefront of our conscious, but more into the back of it, into the subconscious. And at times we come out of it and then they put us back under, but you remember those brief moments. And I certainly did on this one. So um, this was from Breakthrough, Whitley's book. Um, there's a lot of interest in the spine and our visitor friends, although this looks like it's very menacing, and it wasn't. But that's what was seen. You can see the spine glowing through the girl's shirt and her skull from the wand. And we know about the wand because many of us have talked about the wand, and I know I have, and I did drawings of it, what it looked like when I was a kid, which is not here. We're getting close to the end here. This one here is very interesting because this is another one of these times that I'm dreaming. I come out of the dream. I'm fully conscious and I'm in this ethereal place, which I'm starting to think is the in-between place between this world and the astral world. And there was this pole and it looked like a barber pole, but it was glowing. I couldn't quite capture the colors the way I wanted to, but they're very pastel. And there was like this ambient music in the background and this pole, the lights were moving like a vortex through it. Now, later, of course, I'm reading Susie's book, again, Susie's book, and she's talking about these light elevators. And I'm wondering now, is that not what it was? And I remember the grays being very white, very light skinned, um, and just visible in this sort of haze. So, is there anything I still want to show you before I close out here? Yeah, I've always liked this piece. This is Mansfield, Ohio, the famous case with the Army pilots in the helicopter. I did that for Michael Linderman. I don't know if many of you remember Michael Linderman, but look him up. I did a lot of artwork for him in his lectures, and this was one of them. And then finally, let's see. This piece is kind of interesting. This is a piece I did, very sort of impressionistic. I did for the art show back in um, 2019. As I said before, I plan to do another one. In fact, this one, somebody bought this one. Was it Daphne, Mary? I think Daphne bought this one. And Dale Robertson bought this one right off the wall when he came to our studio to do his show in front of camera. And it was one of my favorites, but you got to let this stuff go. But I do have a memory, many memories of being standing at a window, looking out into space, and a gray being there with me and telling me things about what I'm seeing. And in this case, we were looking at Mars. Amazing. So there we go. I got a couple of minutes here if you want to ask some questions, but I haven't seen anything that's been going on in comments because when I'm going through the artwork, I can't see comments as I'm showing to. So I hope you enjoyed that. Next week, we'll have someone else's art, probably Benno's. And Angie, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I did. Yeah, with all the Neanderthals and Australopithecus and the visitors being there at that time in our history. That was a reoccurring theme with me for quite a while. It still is. So yeah, I can see your comments now. Thank you, Shelby. And Mary's art too. Absolutely. It's not all about me. It's not all about my art. I'm just the big blabbermouth sitting here in front of the microphone camera. So, um, well, thank you, Angie. It's very, very nice of you to say. It's stylistic. Sometimes I do stuff that's realistic, I guess, or photo realish, but uh, sculpting I certainly do. So, Linda, you are very welcome, and thank you for all your support. Well, Mary and I, we've been so busy. I mean, it's again, I say this like a broken record, but it's just Mary and me doing all this work. We do want to make prints available. We need to pick the ones out that we're going to offer to start with and put them in our store on our website. We haven't even had time to finish. We have a new website for Breaking the Silence, an actual website where there will be a store and we will have things offered there, like full size, not full size, full figures of the Greys, busts of the Greys, the praying mantis, communion, and other things from this field of interest, along with the artwork, and that will be coming up soon, I hope. Oh, Flotilla, thank you. I haven't seen you around for a while, or maybe I just haven't been looking. I'll take the day off for us all. Plenty of leave. Okay. Yes, Lady Jedi, you do. In fact, I encourage all of you, if you have, thank you, Judy. I encourage all of you, if you can draw, if you can sculpt, if you can paint, or maybe if you can do all of those things, or just one of those things. And art takes many forms. Short films uh, is a category. Filmmaking is very much a category. If you want to share those with us and have them on this show and come on camera and talk about a little bit with us and stuff, that's something, send us an email if that's something you have or want to do. If you just want to share your art and be anonymous, we can do that too. We can give you an anonymous name. You won't have to wear a Guy Fawkes mask, I promise. Uh, we can do that too. We can call it the Secret Art Series. But yeah, I really encourage you to do art. If you have clear memories of things you've experienced, whether it be craft or beings or both, uh, even if some what you think is a very powerful and vivid dream, we'd like to see that. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up because it's now 6:03. I really enjoyed my time with you tonight, and I hope you think about what I said at the beginning. If some of you are late coming in here, in closing, I'm going to read this again. It's from the Outer Limits TV show, my favorite episode, The Six Finger. And in closing, as always, the narrator who had that wonderful voice said this: an experiment too soon, too swift, and yet may we not still hope to discover a method by which within one generation the whole human race could be rendered intelligent, beyond hatred or revenge or desire for power? Is this not, after all, the ultimate goal of evolution? And I would have to say that it is. Thanks so much for being here. I love you guys a whole bunch. I really do. And we'll see you soon. And don't forget to watch Barbara Lamb Friday at 4 o'clock. You don't want to miss that one. She's a wonderful human being. Bye bye.